Yeah, sure. I guess I could kick things off. All right. I guess. Yeah. We'll set the bar high. No.
Where's Brendan?
Hey everyone. My name is Xolo Mariduena. I'm an actor. I'm so pleased to be here speaking in front of you all. Thank you so much. This is my first time in San Antonio, so I appreciate the hospitality as well. You guys have all been so, everyone has been so amazing. And really, when it comes to my statements, I want to say first and foremost that I really do, at first glance, I'm so grateful to be in the position that I'm in. I really think that I've been acting for most of my life, 10, 12 years now, and I think the possibilities, the opportunities being presented now are as an actor, I could have never dreamed to be in the position that I am in today. But with that being said, I also, grew up, was born and raised in, I want to say Boyle Heights is like one of the most, if not the most, like Mexican-American Latino city in the US. So having, it was so contradictory, so kind of jarring growing up, seeing Latinos everywhere, and then looking to the screens, looking to, TVs, movies, music even, and seeing a lack of representation. And I really hope that in these events, in my industry, at least right now, that are kind of being figured out as we speak, I hope that as we get to the other side of this, that there are still just as many opportunities for people who need to tell the stories that they need to tell. It's been so refreshing, it's been so honoring to get to work with creatives, to get to work with filmmakers, who have, stories that haven't been told before. And I think that it's going to be exponential. I've been able to come this far without having, a really like a child Latino person to look up to, and I just can't imagine, as there are more people in the industry that are reflective of the communities that they want to speak to, I think it's going to be exponential. So that's that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I really am hopeful that even in these interesting times. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to note that Xolo is 22. So when he says he's been in the industry for 12 years, right?
I started at the children's place and moved up to Gymboree.
So, and speaking of creatives and being able to work with creatives, Lindsey Villarreal is a San Antonio native. She went to high school with me at Southwest High School, Dragons, and she's WGA captain.
I'm a WGA captain, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you want to tell us
22.
what's going on? Yeah, me too. Since we went to high school together.
We're all 22. My name is Lindsey Villarreal. I am San Antonio Tejana, born and bred. Southwest High School, UT Austin. I am a Texan through and through, and it seemed like a really far, journey from the south side of San Antonio to think I'd ever make it as a writer in Hollywood, and I did it. I worked on big Latino representative shows like Vita, and it feels amazing, I'm eager to keep doing that, but it's not, we're not in a sustainable workforce right now. We're not able to sustain a way of life for the majority of our membership, SAAHJ as well. I hope that we can get to some resolution soon. We've been on strike 3 months now. We're entering the 4th month, right? August. Entering the 4th month now, and we want to get back to work just as much as the rest of our industry does. Not just WJ, not just SAAHJ, also IATSE, also the locals. I think that there is a lot left to be resolved, and I'm hoping that we can get there soon. And yeah, I don't know. I'm here to just say I'm happy to be representative of my hometown. And I would say San Antonio is the most Mexican American city.
Yeah. You're trying to be polite earlier, but come on.
No, we were checking. No flag.
Welcome to San Antonio.
I live in LA resident.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about West Hollywood, by the way.
I'm also a recipient recipient 2003 of the scholarship. So, you know, you guys helped me go to UT Austin, and I'm eternally grateful. Back when Laura and I were two high schoolers, she actually made it in journalism and I did not, but we went separate writing routes. So, yeah, thank you for
Still
having
writing
me here.
and creating
Still
and
writing and
representing our
creating.
gente.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
So I'd love if you, Congressman, could tell us a little bit about the report, why
Yeah.
you did that. There's so many important causes that you are doing already, and so why this?
Well, in the last few days, we marked a very grim anniversary. It was the 4-year commemoration of what was a massacre in El Paso, Texas, where you had a madman drive 10 hours from Dallas to El Paso and killed 23 people and injured 23 others because he considered them quote-unquote Hispanic invaders to Texas. And after that happened, I was chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus at the time, and I really asked myself, how does somebody who doesn't really have experience with the Latino community, how do they come to that conclusion? How do they come to that belief? And I don't think that there's a single person or institution that's responsible for that. But I do believe, spending now 4 years and having thought about these things before this, that one of the reasons is that the Latino narrative, the Latino story, is largely missing from the larger American narrative. Think about your own experience, and when you were growing up in Texas or California, wherever it was, how many Latino or Latina figures you learned about in high school, in American history, for example. Very few. And the same is true in American media today. Because there is this void narrative, Latinos are often defined by mass media, by unscrupulous politicians, as quote-unquote illegal, as drug dealers, as all of these negative, stereotypical things. And that has a demonizing effect on immigrants, on the larger community. And it's not just a matter of cultural inconvenience. That kind of cultural black hole is actually dangerous for a community. And to me, that's what El Paso was partly about, was that danger of exacting a cost on the Mexican-American community in Texas. And so in the last 2 years, I asked the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, to really analyze the exclusion of Latinos in American media, from hard news to Hollywood. And the report, which is an official government report, found that the media industry is the most exclusive of the Latino community of the major American industries. Latinos are almost 19% of the population. About 12% of the overall media industry is Latino, but most of those jobs are concentrated in clerical work and administrative work, as opposed to as reporters, as journalists, as actors, as writers, etc. And so my work over the last 4 years really has been to fill that cultural black hole and support persons and institutions who are doing that. And that's why it's exciting to see the scholarship money that's being raised today. I want to thank Xolo and Lindsey both. But first of all, congratulations to each of you on your success. But thank you all for your presence here, because it helps support the Latino and Latina journalists who are going to fill that black hole of narrative. And it's across different media. It's in publishing. We just had, this month, we're meeting with 4 CEOs of publishing companies all out of New York about this issue of Latino representation. Over the last 4 years, I've met with all the major Hollywood studios on the issue, the major newspapers, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times. You know, Xolo mentioned, I think what was similar for those of us that grew up in San Antonio. I grew up on the west side of San Antonio, which is, even though the communities are different, it's kind of like growing up in East LA, because it is a place, you all know, that is probably 95% mostly Mexican American. And the world that I would step into when I walked outside my door growing up was never like the world I saw on television, or never like the world that I saw when I would go watch a movie, or hardly ever. And there was always this disconnect there. The same is true in journalism. In Los Angeles, for example, the city is 47% Latino, but the Los Angeles Times is only about 15% Latino. And so there's a lot of work to do in each of those parts of American media, but the stakes are very high for our community. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Laura, and everybody at the association for 25 great years of supporting young journalists, and we look forward to 25 more.
Thank you. So 25 years of of our gala, but we've been around for longer than I've been alive, so 37 years. So this is, just throwing that out there. I mean, but I mean, I'm saying we have since we were little, right, since we were little tiny children, they're not born yet. You know, the Hispanic Association has been around doing this work, and you know, it started with Express News and San Antonio Light newspaper journalists, the very few that were actually in the newsroom, that and they got together in a restaurant booth and were like, hey, we need to do something about this. You know, there's not enough brown people or not enough people like us in the newsroom, and sadly, it's still that way. You know, so it's so important that we raise awareness about this, and then we also support the people that are in the industry. So we don't just raise scholarship funds and then, okay, bye, good luck with all that. Our association, we have 100 members, and we will support you in ways that your employer may not. You know, we know that if you are Latino, especially if you're a Latina, you're going to be severely underpaid when compared to every other ethnic group and other women. And so we're going to help you with your resume. We're going to help you get those jobs and move on up and sell yourself. And so that's something that we're really proud to do. And tonight's actually my last night as president. I will be VP next year, but you know, that kind of good work is not going to stop.
Thank you, Laura, for your service, and so we'll take questions if you have them.
Yeah, Xolo, welcome to San Antonio. I didn't realize this is your first time. My name is Kiko Martinez. I write with a lot of different outlets, including La Mezcla. I was wondering, being honored for your contributions to Hollywood this evening as a Latino, what does it mean to you being recognized as a trailblazer in this way?
It's one of the highest honors. You know, as I said kind of earlier, I grew up eating, you know, food on the table that was just dinner. Like, I never really saw it as Mexican food or Latino food, you know, so to be able to show that on the highest stage at the highest platform really is an honor, because it's, you know, while Latinos have had their presence in entertainment, I feel like the stories have been kind of narrow, and you know, I've really been the recipient of people who have believed that I could pull off like positive, hopeful stories where Latinos are being championed and being celebrated, even in times of hardship and even in times of strife. Like, it's not always about how much trauma, you know, someone can withstand. So I think and that was kind of by chance. I auditioned for everything, right? So I really hope that if nothing else, it offers for the opportunity, you know, for everyone else's favorite insert, you know, movie to be made as well, because I think this is just the beginning, and what, you know, kind of feels so anticlimactic about it is, you know, anticlimactic about it all is like, it feels like we're just starting to hit our stride, and you know, there's still a lot of things that need to be figured out, and I just hope that and I know that we'll still continue to push forward, and you know, the representation, I think, is going to be exponential in these next couple of years.
Xolo, Ted Colunga, part of the Countdown City Geeks media team here in San Antonio. Yourself and friends of yours, SAAHJ.
Okay, I was like, which friends? Which what do we
Xochitl
do?
Gomez, you've all been a part of these really mainstream projects in the last few years. What does it mean to you? How proud are you of them, and what does it mean to you to sort of be a part of this new wave of storytelling that does include originally Latino-based characters?
Yeah, I think I mean I'm so proud of my friends. They're killing it in their own ways, and I stand on their shoulders for sure. Like, I stand on all of my ancestors' shoulders. I couldn't have done this without my parents and their parents. But really, I think, you know, the part that is the most that I've seen the most palpable change, and that makes me kind of the most cathartic and energetic is seeing behind the camera the representation. You know, I recently got to do a film where majority of the people behind the camera were Latino, the director, the writer, all the way down the line. So I think that was the first moment that I saw, like, whoa, it wasn't this way ever in my life before, and I've been doing this for years and years, and I can't even imagine what it was like before I was working. So I hope that you know, with the success of these projects like the ones that that you were mentioning, that only more of it will happen, and it transcends ethnicity. It's like there's so many. It's not just Latinos. There's so many different groups, so many different people who deserve to have their voices heard. And I just hope that it's more people have the opportunity to be passed the mic. It's been very selective, and I hope that and I see it with my generation, like with the people that you're talking about. People are making their own stuff,
Yeah.
in at least the industry that I'm working in. So I'm here for it. I'm ready for it, and it's yeah. Thank you. Great question.
So, go ahead.
One quick question, Jose Bañuelos with News Morning Fox 29. In this critical time, this is for everyone, in this critical time in the industry, entertainment, writing, journalism, politics, what advice would you give young Latinos in finding, crafting their voice for the next generation?
Tenacity, man. It's about like having it takes time, energy, money in order to be a creative person, and people who start at the bottom don't always get all of those three things at once. And you have to, I think, have the tenacity to say, if I don't have one thing, or if I at least have one thing, I'm gonna make time. I'm going to work another job, work 3 jobs so that I can have money to have the time to be creative. Like, it takes a large investment, and it takes a community, I would say, even to get one of us to that kind of platform, And just like Xolo was saying, like, it takes a lot to have the writer, the director, the actor, like everybody be a Latino, and that's only happened twice out of like 9 shows that I worked on. Like, that's insane, right? Like, in order to convince everybody above you that we are worthy enough to have a voice that belongs as a part of the greater good, not just a trauma story, not just a maid, what have you, whatever stereotype you want to plug in. It takes a lot of convincing, and it takes a lot of tenacity. I would say, like get ready to be in for the long haul.
I think also is being a really good supportive like cheerleader for whenever you see those shows, whenever you see Vita on, share it and try to get everybody to watch it and really try to get those ratings up and support those works. I just as a consumer, I see any of that. I see a Latino face in the Star Wars, universe, and I'm just like, when the first time I saw Diego Luna on the big screen, I was just like, holy moly! And he's got an accent, so I just seeing that kind of representation and trying to support that, I think is just so important. But it's also not just as a consumer, but like in the newsroom, there's so few Latinos, so few folks who look like me in the newsroom. Try to be there for them and support them, because they're not gonna always get the benefit of the doubt. They're not always gonna be paid fairly. They're not, we already know that there's all these barriers and there's all these challenges in our industry, and so if you could try to, be part of a group like our group where you can network and help each other out, I think that's helpful.
It's also just like write the cool ass thing that you want to see, right? You want to see a superhero Latino that's not a trauma story, freaking write it. Cause Angel Manuel Soto, he talks about it so much. It's just like, if it doesn't exist, just create it. Just make it happen. You don't have to follow the narrative that we've been told how we should exist in this company. You can invent it. You can invent it for yourself and for all of us.
I cannot tell you how many stories I've had shot down from, older white editors and managers, and I will find a way that story will get told. It may be me calling our competitor, Jose, over at Spectrum, hey, I've got this story, because we want that story to be out for our people and to the audience and for the San Antonio community. So for me, that's more important than, these sort of following this line that we have, it's very white centric, and it's been that way, and so I don't know.
Congressman, question for you actually. Growing up, who were your Latino entertainers that you looked up to?
I remember, for example, in the late 80s when La Bamba came out. Everybody remembers Richie, Isai Morales. There were a spate of movies at that time. If you remember, there was La Bamba, Stand and Deliver, came out right around that time, I think in '88. Television, I watched Chip some, right? But otherwise, my brother and I you know, we lived with my mom and my grandmother. My parents would get until I was 8, and so we would go home and watch television from like 3 until, you know, 10 or whatever. And you hardly ever saw Latino presence or Latina presence on television back then. And that's why, you know, it was more kind of the films around that time. Born in East LA, it was a great comedy. I remember that. When I ran into Cheech Marin and them, I told them, you also do a part 2. Maybe you can do that one.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Is there
any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you all so much. I really think anytime opportunities like this arise, I am so baffled at the fact that I'm able to stand in rooms in front of all of you. So thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for working hard. I know that, you know, behind, like you're saying, it takes a community of people to have, you know, certain people rise up, and I'm ready to bring up everyone as well. So yeah, I appreciate the invite. That was the only closing remark, I hope, right?
Well, we actually have time for a couple more questions.
Cars, real quick, what are the
What's your favorite soda?
What are the chances in 2033 that we're going to be starting a campaign to put Blue Beetle in the Library of Congress?
Oh, all right. You know, I didn't mention some of the work that I've done and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus has done, but we got people appointed to the National Film Preservation Board, which runs the National Film Registry. And so we're in the process now of submitting, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, submitting to the Library of Congress a list of 25 films that we believe should be included in the National Film Registry, because films centered around Latino life and by Latino talent make up only 3% of the films in the National Film Registry. So in 10 years, we'll be sure to nominate you guys. I don't know that I'll be there in Congress at that point, but we'll make sure they do.
I thought you were asking if he was going to be running for something. I'm like,
We have a question from the scholarship.
I was just curious, what influenced your decision from switching from journalism to, I guess, Hollywood?
Wow, just not making it in journalism. I think I was like, I didn't really understand how I wanted to be a writer, or that I also didn't allow myself to write, like, coming from a very blue collar background. My mom's sitting right over there. You know, I have a mother for a teacher, dad who was a pipe fitter. Like, it wasn't a clear path how to become a creative, and journalism seemed like, I read papers, I read magazines. At the time, the internet had just started. Like, I'm reading my MySpace. But like, I think there was a clear shift where I was inventing stories more than I wanted to present fact, you know? And so I started taking a bunch of creative writing classes, and I studied film at UT Austin, and I too, you know, like the congressman is saying, was like, man, there's so much that I want to see. Like, at the time, my favorite film was Y Tu Mamá También. Like, I'm like, how can we move a narrative like that to a more Mexican American narrative that people I knew and grew up with can understand? I just got to work on a show with the two of them, like my two idols. Like, it was really a long path, but I think it's all connected too. Laura will tell you, I was just trying to write an op-ed piece that I couldn't get published. But I was like, but it doesn't matter, because I still have these ideas like floating around in my head, and I would just, you know, won't share too much, but I'm just starting to write a novel and some short stories, like going into publishing. Like, we're all connected, journalism, publishing, film, TV, like, and there's a way to get your ideas across that aren't specifically journalism. You can shift, right? You're so young, right? Your brain will change, and you'll invent like new things for yourself and for all of us. And I think it was a long path, but I still have dreams of journalism in the New Yorker or something.
But I think what's so important is that you're still telling our stories.
Sure.
You know, like, maybe they're creative and fictional or whatever, but they're still our stories. They're still eating our food and using our language and have our cultural references, so we see ourselves on the screen. And I mean, to me, that's the same level as me being able to tell these stories of of folks in our community, our Latinos that are doing amazing things, or
Yeah.
highlighting, you know,
I wrote
disparities.
one of the only episodes of The Walking Dead that was an all Latino cast, right? Like it's like really like important to be for us to be able to be a part of those big, huge franchises and put our mark on it. You know what I mean?
Well, and for those of y'all that are going into journalism and maybe you switch over later, it's interesting because journalism, magazine writing, and even book publishing are the upstream that ends up usually, sometimes in film, television, streaming, right? You know, you think about the news articles that have been turned into, you know, films, that inspired films or television episodes and so forth. You know, so you can kind of go between those things.
Right. I want to create my own IP, so I'm writing short stories and, you know, books and stuff.
My question is for the Congressman and Xolo. Where do y'all see Latino representation going in media in the next few years?
Like Xolo said, I think it's improving. And you see some very high profile improvement, right? The Blue Beetle, I think, is huge. Sasha Calle as Supergirl, Xochitl Gomez, and others. America Ferrera that delivers like a very impactful part in Barbie. You know, but we want to make sure that it's not just the high profile stuff, that it's also other stuff in front of the camera, behind the camera. We've also been engaging the unions, for example, because the unions, IATSE and the other unions, Teamsters often have influence, obviously, on who's behind the camera. And so I think we're headed in the right trajectory, but it's taking a lot of pushing from different, obviously not just, there's a whole bevy of advocates inside the industry, advocates that are around the industry, but you know, I think we're headed in a good place.
I think it's hard because with the strikes right now, I think the avenues to putting us in higher positions are disintegrating, right? So it's like, who are the people to go away first in a strike? The people who can't afford to like make it happen. People who didn't make billions of dollars over the course of 30, 40 years, like, you know, people who don't live on the west side of LA, like those are the people to go away first or to give up first, are the people who don't have as much access. So I think it's scary in a time going into the 4th month of the writer's strike, week 3 of the SAAHJ strike, because we don't want to lose the people who are just starting to get their foot on the ladder. Do you know what I mean? We want them to keep climbing.
Yeah, I think in terms of where it's headed, I truly am really hopeful. I think that the new generations that are being born, that are, you know, coming up with all of this diverse, you know, in all different types of media, whether it be music, right, with reggaeton or these types of things. Like I think that there's so many different mediums now, and you know, I myself was so blessed with parents who like told me I could do anything, and whether it was illusory at first, like I really think it helped me get to where I want to be, and I truly do believe that in these next couple of years we're going to start to see a shift in I think it's twofold, right? There needs to be changes at the top and at the bottom, and
Totally.
and then at that point I guess we take over, right? I haven't made it that far, but yeah, I'm 22. You're 21, right? So we're ready. We still got time.
We're making strides.
Yeah.
Working on it.
Awesome.
Great question.
Any more?
Thank you, everyone. Do you have time for one more?
Okay, one more. Yeah, let's do it. Let's.
You both have described being on projects that had a large Latino cast or crew behind it and not having that same presence. What are the differences in the two that you've observed?
The biggest one, I think, for me, I think is an almost inherent sense of authenticity. Everyone is always trying to like tincture what the most like authentic version of this thing is going to be, and when you have the set deck and the costumers and, you know, catering and all of these different, you know, departments who just they know it because it's their life. I feel like it helps make all of the other steps feel natural. You don't have to pretend, or you don't have to reach really far. I think that was kind of the craziest part of getting to kind of be a part of all of the projects that I've that it's felt inherently that people have made an effort to be diverse, and I really think that's only really happened when I've been around other people, like-minded people.
The question is like, what's the difference between being on a fully like Latino representation project and not?
What have
or
you-
being one where you're the only one?
I was going to say, what have you noticed in the differences? How does it help your projects when there's more of a Latino crew behind it?
It's more fun, right?
It's more fun. We have fun. It is very fun. It's way more like relaxed. Like honestly, it's the difference between being a vanity hire and being a part of the conversation, right? When you're on an all-white project and you're the only one, or there's only two Latinos, like they either pit you against each other or they just want your last name, right? So it's hard to have as much of a voice in a world where you know you're just being hired to say, hey, we're a little bit diverse, versus everybody is Latino and you're just creating together. You're not trying to fight each other for who's the most Latino in the Latino world, you know what I mean? Like it's more fun, it's engaged, and you create better content when you're a part of the conversation, yeah. And honestly, I think in the strike right now, I think we're seeing that in the sense of, again, entering month 4, like I've said so many times, but like, I think that we're able to have the force, the tenacity that we have to go so long because the WGA and SAAHJ too is much more diverse than it even was in 2007, 2008. And who knows how to protest for a long time and how to like withstand people who are not represented, right? So we know how to go for a long time, and we're gonna keep going for a long time until they give us fair pay, fair wages.
Absolutely. Thank you both.